What's up, folks? I'm on, by the way. I have had kind of a rough week, so I wanted to do something that seemed like fun and relatively simple today. And I had recently kind of come across on my Tumblr timeline these accounts that kind of exclusively post PNGs, which are the stickers of the internet. They are transparent image files sometimes. Sometimes they're just better compression or something like that. It depends on the file itself. But they have the capability of being transparent, which is the main appeal to them. And the worst thing in the world is when you're searching for a PNG and it turns out to be a WebP image. You can't convert it for your thumbnail. Not speaking from experience or anything. But I thought that it would be interesting to take a look at these, and I learned something as I was looking it up, because I was like, surely there's some sort of extension or something that allows you to find a random Tumblr post, and that would be particularly good for these. And there kind of is. It's built into Tumblr in that if you put the proper web address of a Tumblr page. So in this case, this has a fully zhuzhed up proper blog page. If you make a newer account, or if you just don't like go as deep into it, it will just give you like a little like thing that pops up in front of the feed. It's hard to describe if you haven't been on it. But there are ones like this that are, fully set up individual blogs that you can visit like this. And they have the username first and then .tumblr.com. If you've ever used a website creator, it's kind of similar. You have to use username first, effectively. Then .tumblr.com/random at the end. And it will give you a random post. It took a second to load there. So yeah, I thought that it would be interesting to go through and kind of pick a couple of these to kind of base a character off of. There's another one that I found that's a little bit less, like, aesthetic focused, but I figured maybe we could get one or two from this one as well. Probably, maybe just one, because these are like collections, so they kind of go with the vibe. I think I might try and just do the one character and really lean into the design to try and get into it. So I think I will do that. At that, let's just get in and roll our first associate. Okay, so this is from an Ask. Something goth, specifically centered around spiders and bats. Alright, so we've got bats, bunny bats, spiders, one cross, and a deer skull. So these are the first ones. And I'll actually just keep those up there because I probably need to get these all individually, and that's a little bit of a pain. But let's go for the next one. And let's just paste that here. Vintage miscellaneous. Interesting. I wouldn't know if I would call these all vintage, but they work together pretty well. We've got a bunny loaf. So we've got another rabbit in these collections, which is interesting and weird, kind of kismet. So I'm almost thinking like rabbit vampire. And then let's see if PNG Love has one for me that I will like. See, this one has just the standard kind of floating page situation. Kitties! Also vintage. Okay. Those are very cute. I like the pastel. So maybe kind of a pastel goth with this kind of vintage theme, which makes sense anyway, and maybe they're a vampire. That feels like maybe that could be the way that I could go about this. Okay, so it took me a second. We have our kind of vampire-y gothic stuff over here. Our whimsical, slightly spicy, almost cottagecore antique-y thing going on here. I guess like oddity antique kind of, right? And then just, randomly some cat stickers. This one might be a little bit weird to implement. It might not fully fold into the final thing that I make, but I think that I can at least implement these two into a character. I think that I'm getting a vibe, so I will get started on that, and I will show y'all what I came up with when we get to speed paint voiceover, so I will see you there. I've really been liking the process of making a color sketch first. It both helps with making the color palette and kind of figuring out the shapes for the character too. It really kind of expedites the whole design process because I'm also not trying to figure out the pose and the design at the same time. I had pretty solidly decided that I wanted a dark vampire bunny. Funnily enough, this video is coming out quite close to Easter, and I effectively made a chocolate-colored bunny. I did figure I would try to integrate the kitten stickers by adding in some pink, and I even labored under the idea of making this character have a more pastel vibe in her outfit, because I love some thematic irony. First, I tried something more Victorian-inspired, given that's a very vampire-y era, and it suited the kind of antique theme a lot of the reference images had. I didn't love that though, so I moved on to thinking, okay, maybe something a bit more modern, because I wanted the character to be a vampire in a more modern age who's maybe fond of history bounding because, well, she's already got the clothes. This was also in part because I wanted a more uncovered corset showing off the kind of classic dewlap in place of boob situation, which I really liked for this character. I wound up with a kind of super femme and slightly Lolita vibe, but it still wasn't totally vibing with the pinks, even though they were what I initially chose. I felt like this character was still kind of a goth, and though there is a pastel goth, I just felt like I wasn't quite getting it to mesh with her very deep fur color, and I knew I really liked that. The final pass left me with a black, pink, and red combo with some silver accents. Or I suppose some sort of alloy, because vampire. I decided to opt for hair late, just so I could give her a spider hairpin like in the references, changing it up a bit to look like a widow with a bejeweled hourglass instead. Along with posing out the character, I decided to give her a much more monstrous form too. I feel like more vampires could benefit from exploring more of the whole actual monster aspect, and I'm only partly saying that as someone who is usually more of a werewolf enjoyer. I just love a dramatic transformation, and it felt incredibly suiting for this character as I thought out her story. Not to mention, again, just the beautiful duality of something like a bunny turning into something horrific that could rip you to shreds. I'm sure I'll point out the Bunnicula connotations earlier with editing, but this girl is not a vegetarian like he is. The monster form itself has a slightly less saturated, darker fur color and, of course, the arm wings. I considered changing up the pattern a bit, but I ultimately left it as it was. You can kind of see more of her body markings this way, although a lot of them are still covered up with the wings. I may very well make this character an actual OC, so I might come back to do a full pelt design for her later. Some of the designs I make are just sort of conceptual, just designs I kind of leave be after that particular moment in time, but I might want to play with this one a bit more. I named her Velvet, both as kind of a nod to the Velveteen Rabbit, and because her fur color reminds me of a very deep red velvet cake. Velvet was born sometime in the late 19th century to a relatively poor family. She got her name for both the deep tone and softness of her fur. Her family saw the potential in her to marry a rich suitor, so they put in extra effort toward her care and education. But their financial situation caught up with them, and they were forced to effectively sell their daughter to a loan shark in exchange for their own lives. Velvet became a working woman of the night, but her wits helped her thrive in the environment as best she could, and she was well on her way to ending her indentured service, with some money of her own even hidden away. One night, though, a client, unwilling to pay, assaulted her and left her for dead in the forest. A nearby vampire stalking around for a meal saw the exchange and opted to turn Velvet into a fledgling, saving her life. She awoke furious and ravenous. Set to hunt down her assailant, she came to find out that the man had actually been working with her captor, who apparently found out about her stash. He had never intended to let her leave. Suffice to say, that night the Red Light District lived well up to its name. After learning what she was, Velvet was devastated by the idea of living as a monster, but she ultimately decided she would try to use it for the most good possible. She acts as both rabbit and snare, intentionally baiting the very worst of society into thinking she's an easy mark, and then striking. She's a regular go-to for the girls in her area when there's a consistent problem client. Though she would have rather left it, the dark corners of the world both give her a means to eat and really live, given there's no real questions about her being out at night. If need be, she can steal sips of blood from a living body, preferably willing, but her monster form will absolutely tear her regular prey to shreds. And that is my design for this week. It's probably easy to tell, but I am in love with her. The whole thing just spoke to me in the best way. I hope you like Velvet. Let me know what you think in the comments, as well as any other art stuff you'd like to see me do in the future. My next project idea might take me a little bit longer than usual, so you can subscribe to catch that whenever it goes up too. At that though, I'll leave this here, and I will see y'all next time.